You're about to view a video in regards to backup and recovery for Windows primarily. It's prepared for the NEOPC, Northeast Ohio PC Club. It'll be given on October the 11th, 2017. So you know you need to back up because you may need to recover at some point. These are in here just to show you a couple things. Backup is not as straightforward as most people think it is because it's dependent on the operating system and there are a lot of other variables in it. So this window has kept track. I did an original presentation in 2014 that covered everything up to Windows 10, and then I've added to it and up through October the 2nd and edited it for 242 hours and made 96 iterations of it. And it took 709 files in 52 folders. If I were to lose that information because I didn't back it up, needless to say, I'd probably be very upset. So, backup is a thing that's very near and dear to me. Program, I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible. You really need to probably study more in depth than what you're going to learn from this video because each system is a little different and your needs are going to be different. So that's the reason that I'm making this video. It's going to be available on our YouTube channel as well as the video from the previous backup presentation. And all of the slides that you see that I'm citing something I found on the internet will be available from a PDF that has active links on it, so you can go directly to those sites. And the pages in the presentation that will be on the PDF are identified by a star in the upper right-hand corner. And this is what the PDF looks like. These are some of the items that will be covered on the PDF. So these are all active links. All you do is click on them and it'll take you to the website that goes more in depth if you have a need to know more about that particular item. So, backup. It is a little different for each version of Windows, XP, Vista 7, 8, 8.1, and those were covered in the backup presentation that was given in August of 2014, and it is available on the YouTube channel, the NEOPC YouTube channel, this is the link to it, and there's also an active link on that PDF. There's also a PDF for the original backup presentation. There are other links in that one because things were done differently for these versions of Windows. So we're going to focus more heavily on Windows 10 because it is really very different than the previous iterations. So, just what is it that you're trying to back up? And the very simple answer is ones and zeros, but there are billions and billions of them. And how does the computer know what they are and where they are? This is how it figures it out. There are tracks, the red thing. There are sectors, the blue thing. And there are track sectors where the red and the blue come together. And then there are clusters, which can be over the red and the blue, which for larger files, they take up more space. So those are called clusters. You don't need to know any of this. Just make sure that you know how to do a backup. That's what's important from this presentation. Because I've seen that happen. So some of you know how, some of you don't. Things are changing. You're going to learn some new things here, I am sure. So we're going to be talking primarily about Windows 10, and Microsoft has told us they finally fixed everything with Windows 10. And you can see it was used to design this aircraft, so obviously they're correct. They have fixed everything. Maybe not. So Windows, I took this snapshot of my machine while I was making this presentation up, and it had 111,140 files and 26,059 folders. That's what it takes for Windows to function in my computer. So, corrupt by just the smallest amount in all those 111,000 files, just a little tiny bit. And guess what? Yeah, you got problems, no doubt. And if you get a virus, the problems can be even worse, resulting in, well, we just don't even want to talk about what it results in. So, we have a pretty good idea why you should back up, because if you don't, we're worried about the hard drive. And if that goes, you've got problems. And that can be a question of malfunctioning of the hard drive, and that does happen. They try and keep that to a minimum, but I've had several go bad on my personal computers. The first one that went bad is when I started to learn about backup. You could have a fire, a flood, tornado, who knows what could happen. You could have a pet or a grandchild do something to your computer and lose your hard drive. Computers get stolen on a fairly regular basis. Dirt in a computer can cause problems with the hard drive, a variety of problems with the hard drive. So that causes a loss of personal data, your system, programs that you've got installed, individual files and or folders, or all of them, causing a problem. And then there's malware and viruses, as well as ransomware, which can all affect your data. Ransomware in particular affects all of it. Or maybe you push the wrong key, and that happens. Even to professionals, that happens. Fingers slip off of this and slide onto that, and who knows what happens. And there are other ways keys can get pushed, and with the same disastrous results. We know all about that. And ransomware is becoming more and more prevalent. It takes many forms. There are lots of versions of it, but they all do the same thing. They encrypt your entire hard drive, or any hard drive that is attached to your computer at the time it's encrypted. And there are, like I say, lots of variants, and some of them give you 2 days to pay up. Some of them give you less than that. Some of them give you more than that. But they claim that they'll send you a decryption key once they have their bitcoins. And maybe yes and maybe no. But again, this one's going to give you 6 days. They're very generous. This one, you're down to 54 hours. And, you know, this one only wants $100 US. And in some cases, that might be the better way to go. Although most people will tell you not to pay the ransom. But for sure, you'll lose your data if you don't. And you may lose it even if you do. Another scam that goes on today is this pop-up will come up on your screen, and it'll say that you got your system is infected and you need to call this number right away. This one says that the FBI has locked your computer. You did something very bad. Then you have to pay $200. And you can go to Walmart, Walgreens, Rite Aid, Kmart, CVS, 7-Eleven, and get a money pack and send it to them. Enter the number in here, and everything will be fine. Probably it is not. If you see this, best thing to do is to shut your computer down. Just pull a plug on it. There are a variety of iterations of that particular thing. This is another one. They want you to call support. There, they're going to embed some software in your computer. This one, they're hoping that you'll just send them some money, run down to the local Walmart and get your code number and put it in there, and you'll be all set. These guys want $300. And this is one of the newer ones that's going around. They want you to connect through TeamViewer, at which point they take over your computer. They put in a Trojan, and forever they can get in your computer. You can actually clean it up, and they'll still be able to get in. You need to uninstall TeamViewer if that does happen to you. So it'll give you a new ID. They won't have the ID then, and you'll be fine. Dirt. I didn't take this picture, but I've seen some this bad and even worse. And this is a pretty serious destruction of a hard drive, but I've seen some come apart. So what types of backups can we do? A complete backup. And one type of a complete backup is called a clone. So if these baskets of apples represent your computer, and each one of these baskets is a file folder, and each one of the apples is a file, if you make a clone, you make an exact copy of your hard drive on another hard drive, and you can put that hard drive, if something happens to your computer, you can put this hard drive in and it'll think that nothing happened. So that's what a clone is. I have clones for most of my computers. It takes special software to do it, and a docking station is the right way to do it, the easiest way to do it. But we'll talk about that a little later on. The other type of complete backup is called a system image. So again, you start with your hard drive with its folders and files in it, and this software that makes the system image actually makes it into applesauce, just one big mushy old file. And it takes their software to put it back together again and put it onto your hard drive so it looks like the hard drive did originally. So two types of complete backup. Partial backups are just exactly what they say, and this is for data primarily that you're doing partial backups. And the types of partials, you have an incremental or a differential. An incremental backup is a backup of what has changed from day to day. So it's an individual. If you made a change today, it will show up on the incremental backup. And then what change you make tomorrow will show up on the next incremental, but it won't show up on the previous incremental. With a differential, it shows up always. A differential is accumulation of all the changes that have been made. Most third-party software gives you a chance to do incremental or differential type backups. We'll talk about those a little later. So, what items do you back up? All the little ones and zeros. The answer is you want to back up your system, which is Windows and the things that make Windows work. Drivers, which are individual pieces of software that interface between the hardware and the software on your computer and make them function primarily like printers have big drivers. But almost every piece of hardware in your computer has a driver that makes it function. The registry, and that tells Windows when and how to do what. Your personal data, these are things that you have created, and they could be pictures, they could be files, they could be movies, they could be songs, they could be a lot of different things that you have created, emails, and so on. That's your personal data. Your email, we're going to call that a separate thing because there are special programs to back up email. Your browser, and primarily what you're looking to save there probably are your bookmarks, although there are other settings that some people put in there, so there are backup programs for browsers. Your software and the keys to the software. So there are going to be a lot of cases now that if you have to put the operating system back in to your computer, you may lose all of your software. Even using a Microsoft backup, typically you're going to lose Office and so on. So you want to keep a record of the software keys and a copy of the software somewhere so that if you have to reinstall it, you can. Let's hope not, but it's a real possibility. And if you don't have the key, in most cases, you aren't going to reinstall software. And for those that do, I don't, but for those that do, there are programs to back up social media. What else do you want to back up? Well, you probably want to back up your phones and your tablets. Another situation altogether, and we aren't going to talk about it in this particular presentation. We're going to limit it to computers. But I did find a site that has for backup for mobile things, phones and tablets, both Apple and Android. It's put together by Best Buy, and it's excellent. With these drop downs, you can have there 2 or 3 different ways that you can back up these things, and again, it's listed in the PDF with an active link to this page. So where do you put these backups? Well, you can put them on an internal hard drive. Certainly not first choice, because if something happens to the computer, other than just the first hard drive going bad, for instance, if you get a virus or you get ransomware or whatever, that backup's gone. Fires, floods, theft, always gone. So that's not the optimal place to put a backup. Some people do, but it's not recommended. So external backups can go in a variety of places. Hard drives, and we will talk about a couple of different types of hard drives that you can use. CDs and DVDs, and because the use of memory has become so cavalier, files are getting huge, and CDs are almost out of the question. They're like 3¼ inch floppies. They just don't do it anymore. DVDs are getting to be about the same. Blu-ray, you can get some Blu-rays that'll handle quite a bit of information. They're very expensive. It's still better off to put them on a thumb drive or external hard drive, I feel. Thumb drives, excellent way, and there are getting to be some very large ones, fairly inexpensive. Network drives, most of you aren't going to be connected to a network drive, but if you are, that's may or may not be a good place to do it. Depends on the security that's on it. If you get ransomware and whatever, it typically will go to the drive, and then you've got other problems. The cloud, and we've had conversations in the past about using the cloud. It probably is the best place to put a backup. and that's a conversation for another day in regards to security and encryption and costs and all of those things, availability. So we're going to talk a little more about those further on in the presentation, but those are places where you can put the backup. Your backup should be disconnected, hopefully, in a fireproof, waterproof place of some sort, or off-site, away from your house, which that cloud fits all of those things. So how lost would you be without your computer, cell phone, or tablet? This guy is totally lost. He doesn't even know the meaning of life, which we expect him to. If he had backup, he'd be all set. So when do you back up? An image or a clone. The clone, you do it, well, it's up to you, but after major changes is typically the way you do it. But if you have a clone, you're probably well ahead of everyone else. Data. And that, again, depends on you personally, how much data you create. Most of the programs, you can set it to automatically do it, and you can do it hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, twice a month, whatever you feel is necessary to do. Most of mine is done daily, although I do have some things that I do weekly. Drivers and the registry. And again, after major changes, and that could include putting in a new printer or installing new software or those types of things. Email, browser, and social media. And again, it depends on how important these things are to you and how much you use them. Different people do different things. I do back up my email. I do not back up my browser. And I don't have social media. So anyhow, an email is dependent on whether you have an IMAP system or a POP system. If you have an IMAP system, your email actually stays on the provider's computer, on their servers, and what you're looking at is an image of what's on their servers. If you have POP, the email is actually sent to your computer and it's no longer on the server of your provider. In most cases today, people are using IMAP. You need to know which one you have. If you have IMAP, you really don't have to worry, unless you have huge, enormous amounts of email, and then your provider may want you to get rid of some of it. But there are programs to back up Thunderbird in particular, and there is a program for Outlook. You can export what you have. Same with the browser, social media. I'm going to give you a way to do it. I don't. Software and keys. And you need to do this the minute you buy something. You need to put it in a folder. Better yet, you should put it into a program like KeePass, which we'll mention a little later. So if you're using Microsoft to back up and create a system image, in order to do that, you have to get to the control panel. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the search function down on your taskbar and start to type in control panel, and it will give you control panel. And you would click on control panel. So once you've done that, you get to the control panel, which should look mostly familiar to you. They've added some things here and lost some things here, but most of it looks semi-familiar. And there is right here, backup and restore, and it is from Windows 7. They haven't been able to make anything better apparently, so they're using the version from Windows 7. If you click on that, it will take you here. So you're in the control panel, backup and restore. So this is what you'll be looking at, and right here it says create a system image. So if you click on that, you will see this. Where do you want to put this backup? And it will have inspected your computer and told you the possibilities where you could put it, uh, things that are connected to it. Now, what it won't tell you is if any of those things have enough space to put the backup on. So you need to know ahead of time by looking at the properties of your C drive primarily, what it's going to take for a system image. And then choose something that has at least that much space free. In my case, I knew I was going to put it on this 3T drive, which had 1.82 terabytes free. And I'm going to need about 500 gigabytes. The other options it gives you here, this button which is hidden below that, is to put it on CDs or DVDs. It would take well over 130 DVDs for me to do that, not in this life. Anyhow, then the other choice is for a network drive. And then you click next. Once you've selected, you click next. And you're going to get this window. What do you want to back up? And so it will basically give you all the C drive. And depending, it may or may not give you, if your C drive is partitioned to a C and D for data, it may or may not give you the D drive. So make sure that you're getting all of what you want on the backup, on the image, checked off. Once you're sure of that, you click next, and it's going to give you a summary. And this is where it's going to put it. The backup could be that much. Any existing images that are on that drive could be wiped off. And this is what you're going to back up: your system and all of the gateway, which was all of my C drive, in addition to some system files that Windows used for recovery. So you just click the backup, start backup, and off you go. So are you using Microsoft to back up your data? New in Windows 10. It's a system called File History. And that's been on all of Apple's machines for the last decade, called Time Machine. And basically, it's backing up anything you're creating keystroke by keystroke. And it keeps a versioning record. So if you make changes to a document, it keeps the old document and the new document, which means it can be a fairly large file. But anyhow, Apple people just swear by the Time Machine, and it's automatic. They don't have to make any settings or do anything. It's just there. Now, you can put it on an external drive, which is probably the right thing to do, because if your drive goes bad, then it doesn't matter. You have a backup because it's gone too. So to find out about it in Windows 10, you go to Settings, and then you go to Update and Security, and down to Backup. And under Backup, you'll see it says Backup using File History. And you make sure it's turned on. The default is on, but make sure that it's turned on. And then more options. You can take a look at this thing, which I did, and I had not done before. I made this presentation. So I looked under what was included, and it says My Online Documents. I can't find a folder that's named My Online Documents, nor could I find My Documents. I couldn't find my documents in the included or the excluded. The only thing I could find is my online documents, which apparently is something that Microsoft is interested in. So, a little time and energy to hunt it down, and I found out that on the control panel, they have added file history. So, when I looked at file history from the control panel, the excluded files, my documents was excluded. So, to fix that, you highlight it, remove it from this list, and add it on to the included list. And then file history will be backing up all of your things that you create. Not really. I hate to say this, but there's been scuttlebutt for a while, and I've attached not this article, but another article in the PDF. And we're pretty sure that Microsoft is going to do away with file history in the coming update, the Fall Creators Update. So those of you that haven't gotten the Creators Update yet, you've got another one to look forward to, and it's going to be a fairly large one. And file history is no longer going to function. They're taking it out. And Microsoft said, well, they're working on something new, and we'll let you know when we've got it. So if you've been relying on file history for the last year and a half to keep track of your backup on your personal data, it's going to cease to function. So what to do? And because of that, I've heard some people say Windows is to operating systems as McDonald's is to fine cuisine. They may have a point. So for Windows 10, there is an alternate data backup. And again, you go to Control Panel and you get to backup and restore Windows 7 version. And there's a button here that says Set Backup. You click on that, and we're going to go through this again. Where are you going to put it? Choose where to put it. And let Windows choose. Yeah, I let them choose on file history. That didn't work out well. Let me choose. And you can pick exactly what you want to back up. You probably want to uncheck include the system image of the drives, because that's a huge thing, and you've got a system image, and you'll make another system image if you make major changes, but you don't need to do that in the meantime, and it just takes up a lot of space. So you would probably uncheck that. You're just going to save documents and pictures and videos and things of that nature, but you can choose what it is you're going to save here. Once you've done that, click Next, and it tells you where you're going to and what you're going to, and then you need to worry about a schedule when you want to do this. So you click on Change Schedule, and you can set it up for once a month, daily, whatever you want to set it up for, and choose a time, and that will be your schedule to do it. Now, again, this is making applesauce out of this thing. It's condensing it down. So you need a piece of software in order to use the backup. And they're saying get a system repair disk, which would be necessary to restore this backup image. And it really is an image more than a backup. But in Windows 10, you actually really do need a recovery drive. And we need to talk a little bit about a recovery drive. We're at that point. We're at that point in the life cycle of Windows 10 when a recovery drive is going to be probably in your future. We're going to get in depth on Recovery Drive later on in the presentation when we start talking about using these things to recover from a catastrophic thing. Right now we're going to talk about some useful built-in and third-party software that you may want to use to help you do these things. This article, and again it's part of the PDF, Active Link PDF, has 32 free backup software tools that you can use. And they're all good. They all have different attributes. Depends on you, what you need, your level of dealing with technical parts of Windows, and so on. But again, there's a good write-up on each one of them, and I suggest you choose one, because I don't know what Microsoft's going to be doing about backup. If you're just doing files, this one apparently, I have used it, but I'm not currently using it, and yes, it is an excellent program. Fairly easy, straightforward, and works well for just doing files. File versioning is going to come up when you start looking at this, and you need to understand that a little bit. Go into it in depth in the backup presentation from August of 14. So if you want to think about file versioning, and that's being able to keep, every time you make a change to a file, to keep the old as well as the new. And some of these programs allow file versioning, some do not. So if you need to know more about it, you can look at that presentation. The number one choice for them was Komodo. It's more of a commercial thing than a retail thing. It is free. It can do anything you want it to do. Setting it up is a little tedious. It's a lot tedious. It took me quite a while to do it. Does a great job, and it can do it any way you want it. So that's one to consider, certainly. There are easier ones to deal with. Now, I've been using, and I've talked to our club many, many times about Karen's Replicator. I thought that was just absolutely the best backup program I'd ever used. Guess what? Windows Creator has made it non-functional. So that's why I had to explore some of the other options myself. So how are you going to back up for those of you that are using Microsoft's Edge? How are you going to back it up? Microsoft has not really furnished you any software to help you do that. And for some people that really is important, as it was to this gentleman, and he just, Emmett Gray, and he took it into his own hands. Since Microsoft wouldn't do it, he decided to do it, and he wrote his own program. It's free. You can download it, and you can see that he's stayed right on top of it, making sure that it's current on everything. And it does all of these things, very, very complete. So it makes Edge a little more desirable anyhow. Backup for Firefox, and it does Thunderbird as well, because they're both Mozilla programs. It's called Moz Backup, been around forever. Very simple to use, and it makes a single file out of your email and or Firefox, and you can restore it anytime you want to. An excellent program. I've used it a lot. The only drawback is that if you make a backup of your Firefox, for instance, and you want to restore it, you have to restore it to the version of Firefox that it was made from. So that's why there are sites that keep old versions around. So when you do a backup, you need to be sure you know what version you are working with. So this is a free driver backup, been around a while and does an excellent job. very important to because Windows 10 is now starting to insist on installing certain drivers, and has caused a multitude of problems for some folks. So having a backup of your drivers is always a good thing to have. This one is free. This one is a pay for, and it checks constantly your drivers to see if there's anything new out there, and automatically goes out and gets it and updates your drivers. It's all automatic in the background, but it does cost money. And I believe the last I looked, it's about $39 is what I think. So how do you back up and restore your registry? And actually, it's quite simple. You have to type in the search window run, and it'll bring up a run window, and in that window you type regedit, which brings up a window that looks like this. You right click on computer and it will give you collapse, export, or disconnect. You want to export it as a file, and know where you put the file. And it's a fairly substantial file. I believe mine was about almost 500 meg. Anyways, you should have that, and put it someplace disconnected from your computer. This is where you would type the run down here in the search. Now, recovery drive. I mentioned that before. So if you type recovery, lo and behold, it says create a recovery drive. We're also going to want to talk about creating a restore point separate from that. But this will take you to here, and there is a chance to create a recovery drive from this point. There are other places actually in Windows that you can do it from. This is also where you get to restore. Make a recovery drive, and they're very specific to either 32-bit or 64-bit. You need a minimum of a 16 gig flash drive in order to create, and they recommend doing it on a flash drive, not on a CD. So when you've done this, create it from the control panel, you will get this window, and you leave this checked, back up the system files, and you've got the 16 gig flash drive plugged in. You click next. It'll find where it could put that, and that's the only thing that can go on it. In this case, it was an F drive that I put in there that was the 16 gig. And it says everything on that drive is going to be deleted. Yeah, we know that. And then you just click create, and you've got one. Now, read this and believe it. Get familiar with the Windows 10 recovery drive before you need it. This short article will help you learn about that. And if you ever need it, it makes your life a whole lot easier. Other than if you know the difference between BIO and UEFI, which we talked about in an earlier presentation about Windows 10. That's what allows it to work from the thumb drive. And they're working on it not being a problem. I'm told it's not a problem now, so we won't get in depth about the difference between the two. It has to do with boot order and a variety of other things. But read this article. It's an excellent article, and if you ever have to use the recovery drive, you'll be ready to do so. And again, make one and put it away someplace. It'll work on any Windows 10 machine. If you make a 32-bit on any 32-bit window machine, it's running 10, or if you make a 64 on any 64 machine that's running 10. It's not machine specific, is what I'm saying. Okay, we were talking earlier about where do you store your information about your programs, your keys for your programs. I've talked about KeePass forever and ever. I still think it's a great program. That's what I use. But there are lots of other ones out there. Of those that are getting rated recently, this one is supposedly the best, called LastPass, and it is free. So if you're looking for a place to keep all of your passwords, and I highly recommend you have a place, not a piece of paper, but a place to put all of them, this is a good choice. And for instance, Camtasia is the program that I'm producing this video in, and this is the key for my Camtasia software, and it's stored in my KeePass folder. Okay, social media, for those that are spend a lot of time doing those kinds of things and have things that they want to back up. This particular article was totally about backing up any of the social media programs, and it's pretty well done by Katrina Power. So we talked about cloning earlier, and what that means is if something happens to the hard drive in your computer, all you have to do is take the clone and put it in, plug it in, and you're back in business immediately, with the exception of anything you've done since the clone was made, which hopefully you've got something in a backup somewhere to complete the clone. But it takes special software, and this article lists 5 free cloning tools. There's some really expensive third-party backup software that does all kinds of different things. The most popular probably is Norton Ghost, and this was a picture from the old presentation. But anyhow, it's an expensive program. At that point, it was on Amazon for $189. Some people think Ghost is the end-all, do-all, and other people, as you can see by the rating here, 3 stars out of 5, don't think so. But if you're so inclined and you do some research and you think that that's what you have to have, you really want to go to eBay, because you could have bought that on eBay for $10. You have to do a little more research on this guy and make sure it's legit. But anyhow, it's certainly a whole lot cheaper there than it would be to buy it from one of the retail stores. So after you've done all these backups and got all of these restored drives and all of that together, if you have a problem, how do you fix it, and how do you restore your computer? And that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, Fix-It has been around forever for Microsoft. A little piece of software that they furnished that would hunt down some problems and fix them for free. Unfortunately, not available for Windows 10. But, and this is a really good but, they have another thing that is helpful. This is called Microsoft Support, and I've got the link for that. And you tell it what you're having a problem with Microsoft-wise, whether it's Windows, Office, Outlook, the Surface, OneDrive, Skype, whatever it is. And it'll go into some depth on finding a solution for you. Another new service that they have is called the Virtual Agent. And you can click on it here. I also have a link directly to it here. And this is in the preview version. Apparently they're still working on it to some degree. And you tell her about your problem. And currently, I I tried it out a couple times, and it linked you to every article that was ever written by Microsoft in regards to anything close to the problem that you talked about. That's what it does. But it does help, cuts down on time, and seems to be a good thing. So, some of the things in the past that some of you have used that you didn't know where they went to can be easily found by pressing the Windows button and the X button at the same time. This is not new, but it becomes more necessary as we move down the Windows 10 road. And it will bring up this list of features. Makes it easier to get to device manager and disk management and so on if you use those kinds of things. Easy way to find them rather than hunting for them one at a time. Just press two keys and there they are. But also under settings and updates and security, if you go to troubleshoot, it actually has software that will look at internet connections, audio, which audio is always a problem, even more so with Windows 10. Printers, again, more so with 10. Windows Update, and there are a lot of people that can't get updates, and this software will hunt down probably the reason why. If you get blue screens, they have a little piece of software that'll look in the right places and fix it, perhaps. Bluetooth, hardware, and your home group. So, good stuff. Need to know where it is, and that's where it is. I would try all of that before I try and do a restore on the computer. So, restore points. Restore points are snapshots of your computer at a given point in time. And if you have a problem with your computer, you can go back to a previous state of the computer. So you type in create restore, and it brings up this. And it's in system properties. Kind of hard to find just on your own, but anyhow, that's just the easiest way to find it. And you will get to this window. So then, if you want to restore the system from a restore point, you click System Restore. And in this case, it had 3 points that it could have restored from. If I was having a problem, you choose one of those, and it will restore the computer to that state it was at that time, on that date at that time. Typically, computers are set to create a restore point after there's been a change to the system or an addition to the software of the program, of the computer. But you can create your own restore points. Just click on Create and type in a name for it and create a restore point, and it'll make a restore point. But you also need to work on configure how long it's going to keep them and how much space it allows for that. And there's a lot to go with all of that. Anyone need to smile so far on this? I mean, it's try to keep you laughing here. If you see this, the only answer you can give is yes. You would like some wine instead of having Windows try and find that file. And my computer hard drive crashed. NSA won't send me their copy. And not sure that's funny. Okay, must have. You must have a system image. There is no doubt today you need to have at least a system image, and hopefully on a drive that is disconnected, fireproof, and whatever. Even better is to have a clone drive someplace. Makes your life a lot simpler. So, some more recovery options. And if you go to settings and you come down to recovery, now more recovery options. And when I clicked on that to make this presentation, I got this. And it said, you mean to switch apps? I don't know. So I said, sure, why not? Apparently that's what you think we should do. And it took me here. Now, on some other Windows 10's computers that I have, it didn't say that, but it took me here anyhow. So you may see that, you may not, but this is where you're going to wind up. Fresh start. It sounds like cat litter. Anyhow, what this does is this is like a factory reset. It'll take Windows back to, and it'll take it back to the most current version of Windows, which is a good thing. But you can have an option to save all your personal files. That's a good thing. You're going to lose most of your apps, including Microsoft Office and a variety of other things, almost everything. But it does give you a clean install, and if you've had virus problems or whatever, this might not be a bad way to go. Once you get going on that, you're committed. So yeah. Now, another place here in the recovery area of settings, you have Restart Now. And when you click on that, the computer restarts and you'll see these options available. So System Restore, and this is to use a restore point, which we talked about how you can create those and where they are. This will get you there also. You can use a system image. If you have an image that you've made someplace, you can recover from the crash that you had by clicking on this and pointing it to that image. Startup repair, and 10 has had some startup problems, some serious startup problems, and they've got really a piece of software when you click on this that hunts down what it is that's preventing your computer from starting up properly. I'd stay away from these two things over here unless you're pretty proficient at computing. Go to a previous build. That's fine, except you're going to have to go forward again anyhow, so I'm not sure that'll cure your problem for today maybe, but you've got to figure it out why it wouldn't deal with, and whether you're on anniversary or creator currently. But if you need to use the computer today and it just installed a new version of 10, you can go back from here. So again, talking about recovery in the control panel, we talked about backup and restore. We talked about file history, which isn't going to be here anymore, and recovery. Recovery from this console, from the control panel, gets you almost to the same places as from the settings. So we've got a link here to this article, which had 14 free bootable antivirus tools. And again, if your computer won't boot, it doesn't matter, you have a backup. You've got to get to be able to boot. And if it's because of a virus that it won't boot, there are, and this one lists 14 of them, companies that produce a disk that actually boots your computer and then runs an antivirus program to get rid of malware and viruses and whatever that are preventing your computer from starting. So you may need to, and it's not a bad idea to have one of these things around. They're free and don't take long to make one, and you put them on a CD or a DVD, and you're at least got a possible cure for a virus problem that is preventing you from booting your computer. I don't know why, I just thought it was time for a little more levity. Breaking Windows is not just for kids anymore. Are you sure you want to delete Windows? I've thought about that many times, and I'm somewhere about there. Anyhow, So, what can you buy that isn't free that can help you feel more comfortable that you're not going to lose all of your personal stuff? And we've got first cloud storage, and the attributes of cloud storage I'm not going to debate here, uh, but by the number of people that are out there doing it, you know that it's very popular. And the one that's recommended here, iDrive, would probably be my choice. The issue becomes how much storage do you get? In this case, it's a terabyte. But it's an unlimited number of computers that you can back up using their space, which is good. But when they get to unlimited space, then it's only one computer and back and forth that way. So they all have their pluses and minuses. It seems to be iDrive has probably the best program out there today, and it currently runs about $50 a year. Carbonite is another good one that's not listed here, but that's very specifically backup. But again, you can look these things over, read the article that this came from. There's the article is attached to it, and they go into more depth, and there's links to all of these things from that article. So, an external drive, and there are tons of them out there at all different kinds of prices, and Tegra Direct has been a go-to for me for years and years. But that's not to say that Best Buy or Staples or somebody else doesn't have the deal today. Again, memory is becoming less and less expensive, and you can get some bargains out there. But these are portable external drives, fairly robust. Don't have to worry about banging them around a whole lot. Do a good job. If you're going to do some things with disc, DVDs, and CDs, you need to make sure that it's compatible with Windows 10. Most of them are not, and I can vouch for that. Anyhow, when you're looking, if you don't have a DVD, CD drive in your notebook, most computers come with them still, but a lot of notebooks don't have them anymore, or your tablet or whatever. You want to make sure that it is compatible with Windows 10. Now, this is the way that I have decided to go on most of my things. These are called hard drive docking stations. And you can take a bare drive, hard drive, like what is used in your computer or your notebook. And in your computer, they're typically 3.5-inch drives. And in your notebook, they're typically 2.5-inch drives. And all of these are compatible with both. The smaller slot is for the 2.5, and this thing flips down and allows the 3.5 to go in there. Different features, different quality. They're all close to this price range. These are Amazon ones. These are from actually a Japanese company. But there are flat ones also, if you have a space issue or whatever, that do the same thing. There's a 4-bay one that costs $300. I don't think so. If you're going to be making copies of drives and whatever, that's where you would get involved in something like that. Anyhow, they're useful because you can buy, these are hard drives, like what's in your computer, a full-size computer, desktop. These are 3.5-inch, and these are called white label. These are from a company called Newegg, and they buy them from Western Digital, Seagate, whoever, who has made them for Dell or whoever, and didn't take all of them. So they slap a thing on called a white label, so it's no brand name on it, and they make them attractive in price. So you can get 160 gig with a 8 meg cache, which is a big cache, running 7200 RPM, which is a fast drive for $16.99, including shipping. So you just slide one of these into the hard drive dock that we just looked at, and put on it whatever you want to put on it, and take it out, and you've got it. You can put it in the safe, you can do whatever, and you can put another one in to do a different kind of backup or whatever you want. It makes you have a very flexible, inexpensive system. So that's what I use, and it works well. In particular, it works even better if you have USB 3. All of those docks are USB 3. USB 2 is fairly slow, whether it be those or a thumb drive. There's a very inexpensive thumb drive, and I can guarantee you it'll be overnight for it to do the backup for you. Very slow. It's just the quality of the chips that they use to do it. This went really slow. 128 gigabyte thumb drive for $15.99. The cost of memory today is ridiculously low. So, what have we learned here? If Windows stops working, you just reboot it. If that doesn't fix it, format the hard drive. That used to be the way you did it, but with all of the recovery tools that they've put in, you don't have to do that anymore. But why did they put all the recovery tools in? Because it happens more often than it used to. So, good news, bad news here. Make sure your antivirus is up to date and you have it running all the time. You don't want to have a virus that I deal with people every week that have had problems, and it's not fun. It's just not fun. And if you see that come up, you know that you better have a backup. And if you don't, you can teach your computer how to crash properly. So viruses and malware are dramatically increasing every year, including ransomware. If your hard drive is over 3 years old, the chances of failure increase by 50%. Although again, I've only had 3 drives that crashed, 4. Correct myself, 4. I had one crash just about 2 months ago. It does happen, and it's not fun when it does. Hardware and software compatibility issues increase, and having backups can help you with that, being able to go back to a previous and then fix it and then go forward. And then there is oops for both you and the manufacturers, and mistakes get made, buttons get pushed, code gets written, and computers crash, hard drives fail. So be ready. Do it soon, keep it done, be ready for what comes up. It will never end. And now, time for questions.